Hello, I'm Michaela. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. Today we are here to talk about more of Requiem of the Rose King and episodes 13 through 15. If you haven't been following along, I will put the other videos in the description box below, but right now we're going to get into it. Episode 13. 10 years have passed, and King Edward IV is enjoying a future predicting destiny cake at a banquet. George is now a drunk. He's upset that Edward took over his power and his domain is gone. And now he has a child with Isabel. Apparently, there's a rumor that ever since Richard and Anne got married, they have yet to share a bed together. It's still difficult for Richard since he's still trying to keep his secret, but even then, they haven't shared a bed. They already have a son. More on him later. Back at the banquet, we see that Duke of Buckingham has grown bigger and taller. Their conversation was brief, so I prefer the manga version of this interaction. I especially like how Buckingham says, "Then choose your future, or are you afraid to choose?" He mentions that there's a rumor that Richard killed Warwick, but we all know it was Buckingham. But what we don't get to see him say in the anime is that, "Long ago, I bought your skill in battle and your nobility." Then we meet a woman named Jane. She definitely knows what she's doing, and she calls herself a witch. She says she can read the future with signs. She probably knew that Edward loves the women, and so it didn't take long for them to sleep together. Now he's basically having an affair and with Jane, and it shows that in the manga, we get a look at Richard and Anne's son named Edward. If you didn't figure out by now, he is actually Anne's and Edward of Lancaster's son. Anne says that he resembles that man with each passing year. Then we have Isabel and George in the same room, but he's still drunk. Here's where I feel that they censored or were lazy to animate this. George is really depressed, and how serious his downfall is. In the manga, he says, "I feel better when I'm drinking." Not good. And he's so drunk that he almost drops his newborn son. In the manga, George looks depressed and drunk. In the anime, he's just drunk. Here's something that was really censored. There's another reason why Jane calls herself a witch. She makes drugs. When Edward sent the children and the women away, it was time for a celebration that was only for the men. Jane put some kind of drug or aphrodisiac in the wine that made everybody horny and lose their mind. In the manga, it was basically a big orgy. They used a lot of colors and outlines of people, so it could be censored. And here's what it looked like in the manga. And somehow Richard ended up in a threesome with Edward and Jane. Don't know why. Skip to that aftermath of this. There is a moment where we see Buckingham questioning something. Something like Richard has a secret. In the manga, we see that he's imagining or daydreaming about Richard. He wasn't sure if it was a dream or reality. Later, we find out that Isabel was very ill after giving birth to her son. Unfortunately, she dies because she took medicine that was poisoned. We don't get to see a lot of Elizabeth's previous husband's kids. They were seen in early in the manga. If I find a picture, I'll put it here. Episode 14. I'm going to summarize this episode in 3 to 4 sentences. Richard captures George for cursing Edward IV, even though Edward wants George to pull it together somehow. However, George falls for Richard's tricks and ends up storming the courtroom and making a fool out of himself. Eventually, there's some kind of plan in motion to convince Edward that the Woodvilles are responsible for George's death. Now here's what was in the manga but didn't make the anime. During the feast, Edward decides to take Richard, Hastings, Buckingham, and Catesby to an establishment where men can be men and enjoy themselves. If you see where I'm going with this. Now, Richard does try to send his maid off, or prostitute, and tell the king he enjoyed himself. But in the manga, the girl tries extra hard to try to do her work. And she wants to work for her money. Apparently, she's been with all kinds of lords, even women in men's clothes. But then Richard asks, has there been among them one with both sexes? She responds, do you think a prostitute would even sleep with a demon? Don't mock me. Do what you will with that. Then we have Richard. Excuse me. We have Richard asking Beth if she's been drinking. With actuality, in the manga, clearly you can see there is a drunk man forcing Beth to drink just to, I guess, have some kind of fun. I personally think they did a pretty good job when it came to the screenshot of Richard having Buckingham kill George. And here's how it looked in the manga. Tell me which one you like in the comments below. We miss a man suspecting Richard being a demon and was trying to find him by describing the appearance to people. The prostitute gave him everything he needed to confirm his suspicions. Something that was censored was the way the assassin stabbed George. He was stabbed in the armpit, something like you would see on a stage play. There was more of a struggle in the manga. Plus, the assassin was actually talking during the assignment, and he was silent in the anime. During the scene where the Woodvilles and the Buckingham and Hastings discuss who can take King Edward's place since he's fallen ill and doesn't look like it's getting any better, Queen Elizabeth was added to the mix. But I prefer the manga version. There's a lot of manga stuff that was cut from the anime and was, well, of course, you should know that by now. That's the whole reason I'm doing all these episodes. It was leading up to Buckingham questioning Catesby about Richard's body. Jane is the one who gives Buckingham a hint that there's something different about Richard's body in the anime and the manga. Near the end of Volume 9. Plus, it happens after Edward has a nightmare and seeks comfort from his father, Richard. So, I'm gonna make a shorts video for that, and stay tuned.